Welcome to another edition of the Monday Report here on InsideTheGrove.com. You know the drill by now. I'm Ty, he's Chase. We're on the green couch and we're bringing you the recap of a huge weekend in Ole Miss recruiting. And Chase, let's dive right into it. 4 commitments this weekend. The first is a big tight end prospect from Nashville, Zacchaeus Mason. ESPN and Scout Sync thinks very highly of the kid. He's the number 2 tight end prospect in the nation.
Such an athlete. Had a lot of basketball offers early in the recruiting process. Decided he wanted to play football and seemed to really get a rapport going with Ken Austin. Big get for Ole Miss with Ferbia Allen and E.J. Epperson already on campus. Tight end looks really good for Ole Miss in the next couple of years.
Certainly. Zacchaeus Mason seems to have established a very close relationship with Ken Austin, who is also a Nashville native, and it seems like that kind of won out in the end. Moving right along, a prospect that you've been in contact with a lot, you kind of followed his recruitment, Joel Kite. He's a linebacker from Lithonia, Georgia. Little on the short side, he's 5'9", 200, but the kid really brings the wood, and I think the Ole Miss staff likes him.
Yeah, Joel gave Ole Miss kind of a scare. Saturday night about 6 o'clock, Joel committed. Then about 7 o'clock, decommitted, called his head coach, Torrey Jarvis, back to his school, said, I need to really think about it for a few minutes. Ole Miss told him to take the night, see what he thought. And the next day, he's still going to stick with the Rebels. I thought Auburn was a pretty big threat, being closer to home and kind of offering him the same situation. But the Rebels really did get a heck of a linebacker in Joel Kite. Like Ty said, he hits like a Mack truck, and I think that he will be a guy that can play outside linebacker or strong safety and should see playing time before his career is over.
A strange situation for sure with everything that happened Friday night, but hey, he's a Rebel now. He plans to sign with Ole Miss on Wednesday and be here in Oxford for the summer. Moving right along to another outside linebacker prospect, a kid that I've had a chance to watch a good bit, is D.T. Shackelford from Decatur High School in Alabama. D.T. played a lot on the defensive line in high school at both defensive end and defensive tackle, but the Ole Miss coaching staff kind of envisions him as a middle linebacker type. He's very compact, about 5'11", 225, but kind of like Joel Kite, the kid flies to the football. He gets there in a hurry. I think he's a special talent. What do you think about DT?
Yeah, I do. High character guy and seemed to really have a nice Mississippi Alabama All-Star game where Ty was at covering. He does a lot of things well, and he's a really solid pickup. And again, Ole Miss beats him wins out over Tennessee and Auburn. They're really kind of going in with the big guys in the SEC and taking over right now.
That's a big get for Houston Nutt and the rest of the crew. And just kind of lastly, wrapping up the commitments from this weekend, we have Jamez Logan, a tall wide receiver from the Houston, Texas area. He's in the 6'3", 180-pound range, from Mississippi originally, from Natchez. This seems to be like a guy that the Rebels kind of looked at as a backup option between some of the bigger ones like Marlon Brown and Pat Patterson. But, to hear people close to the Ole Miss program talk about it, they really like Jamez Logan. He's a big target out there. He can kind of go up and get the football. He stretches the field, and I think it really adds to Ole Miss's recruiting class at wide receiver.
It is. They're really going after that tall prospect that can, like I said, be physical, go up and get the football. And they are. The Ole Miss staff and everybody around him really, obviously, thinks very highly of Jamez Logan. So it's definitely not a back burner thing. He was one of the guys they wanted. I heard he committed on his visit, but they didn't want to scare off other wide receiver prospects. But now he wanted to bring it out. The coaches said to let it go, so now he went ahead and offered his commitment to Ole Miss.
Now, the strange thing about this is all 4 of those commitments came from kids who were not on campus this week, who called the Rebel coaches from other locations to commit. Now let's kind of move right along to the kids who were here. It was a lighter weekend, the last weekend of official visitors before signing day. Only 3 kids on campus. 2 of them have already been committed, in Gabriel Hunter and DeMarcus Knight. The third is Tallahassee, Florida linebacker prospect Willie Farrell. Farrell's kind of a tough guy to get a read on right now. He told me yesterday he may even wait until after signing day, to make a decision. But he seems to really like Ole Miss. He's cousins with Chris Vaughn. Where do you see the Rebels' chances with Willie?
I think it all depends on whether or not he wants to sign and play. So Willie's grades aren't necessarily in order right now. I don't think he's going to qualify. Hence, he would have to go to Hargrave or go somewhere else to get situated to come to Oxford and be at Ole Miss. However, FAMU is definitely a threat here because maybe he can get in there academically. So I think it just depends on what Willie wants to do and where his grades end up being.
You can't count out the hometown Rattlers just yet for Willie Farrell. Now, talking about just real quickly, touching on the 2 kids who work here and committed. Gabriel Hunter, he's a kid out of Memphis that the Rebel coaching staff kind of likes at linebacker and at running back. He had a serious knee injury earlier in the year, so he's probably a gray shirt candidate, but if he gets healthy, a very special talent.
He is. It's another one of those guys. They're bringing in athletes, bringing in nice prospects. And, Houston Nutt, he's not really worried about the numbers to a certain extent here, as they're just getting guys in that can play football.
Real quick, DeMarcus Knight seems solid after the visit. You like him?
Yeah, I do. He was definitely solid. He's been committed for a while. I think it's just a matter of getting him on campus, let him see everything, you let him have a nice weekend.
Absolutely. That's it for the recruiting news this weekend, but we can't forget about a couple of other sporting events on campus that really looked good for the Rebels this weekend. First of all, we're going to go right into basketball. Ole Miss defeated in-state rival Mississippi State for only the third time since 1984 in Starkville, Mississippi at the Hump. I was there, the atmosphere was loud, and now, Chase, all of a sudden, the Rebels have 2 wins in a row over a couple of good teams in Kentucky and Mississippi State.
They are led by Tarico White, who's just been outstanding so far. They've got Auburn home Wednesday. They could go 3 in a row right here. And kind of, the NIT is definitely in the running right now for sure. And you never know. The last 5 games of the season are pretty favorable for Ole Miss. Andy Kennedy has done an excellent job amidst all the turmoil. And really, they're a possible postseason team right now.
It's going to be scary next season when Chris Warren comes back healthy and you have that backcourt full of Chris Warren, David Huertas, and Tarico White. That's a lot of talent back there for the Rebels. Moving right along into a big weekend on the hard court with the tennis team. Ole Miss playing in the ITA national team indoors. They beat Kentucky. They beat Wake Forest. They're on to the round of Sweet 16. And Chase, I know we talked about this. The draw was kind of stacked against Ole Miss here in Oxford with the 4 teams that were here. Now they move on to the Sweet 16, and they've already gone through a couple pretty good teams in Kentucky and Wake Forest.
Right. The thing with the ITA National Indoor, they set the top 16, and then number 17 used to pick where they go. So Ole Miss ended up with a really loaded bracket of some top 30 programs in Oxford. They beat Kentucky in a really tight 4-3 match, and they kind of dismantled Wake Forest yesterday. But 4 freshmen on that team, led by Mississippi and Devin Britton, they really are. They're getting experience, they're gaining confidence, and again, Billy Chadwick has got a heck of a group going on at the Palmer Asylum Center.
Certainly, and moving right into baseball, we had a little fall scrimmage, or a little spring scrimmage, I guess now. Baseball season's here, and the team worked out for about 2.5, 3 hours yesterday. Just some light work. I guess you were at Swayze Field. What were your impressions from the team?
Really just pretty sound. They had some areas, had a few slip-ups, but first day, not a big deal. I thought Philip Irwin had a great day. I thought Brett Basham looked pretty good behind the plate. And, Taylor Hightower, 2 hits behind the plate as well, so maybe there's a little depth at catcher now. For the most part, they did pretty well. The one kind of surprise was Scott Biddle. He actually didn't get through his 2 innings of a lot of throwing. 1 1/3, 6 hits, I believe 3 or 4 runs. Biddle kind of got bashed around a little bit, but I think he was trying to work on some things. And the first day you can't really put a lot of thought into that.
You never like to hear that about Scott Biddle, but like Chase said, it is early. There's a little bit of time between now and the end of the season. Great to hear about Phil Irwin, though, because there's a couple holes in that pitching staff that need to be filled. And if Phil Irwin could step up and be maybe a Sunday starter or maybe a rock solid midweek guy, that would be huge for the Rebels. Well, that's going to about do it for our coverage here on this edition of the Monday Report here on InsideTheGrove.com. I'd like to remind everybody to check back in Tuesday night because there will be a special edition of the Recruiting Roundtable, video style, back here on the green couch with Chase and I, right on the eve of signing day. So check back Tuesday evening. We're going to have a lot of great information right before we roll into National Signing Day Wednesday morning, so we'll hope you'll join us here on InsideTheGrove.com.